outer edges. There's a paraglider here. Where did he fire off to? Jump somewhere.
Maybe up there.
You've got the windsocks here. I never saw that before.
No overnight camping. No overnight camping.
Where?
All along here.
We can?
No. I said it's no overnight.
Oh, okay. Sourdough Joe's restaurant.
Ice cream
Bake shop.
A
Closed.
lot of them are closed actually when you
Yeah.
look, which is sad. I guess with COVID, it's really hurt everyone.
There's the general store.
Yep.
Oh look, there's the SSS Kino. It's not SSS, SS. Okay, so here's the visitor center. And the Northwest Territories one is there, so we can park in here, I believe. Back in.
Yeah,
There's a big man truck there, look, too.
Holy cow. I know, Bella. We'll get you out.
So Sandra and I have just rented a 50-minute plane ride over here. This is our red plane that's going to take us over to Tombstone Mountains. We're looking and feeling pretty pumped about this. I'm going to take off on the Yukon River. Pilot's name is Colin and the company name is Mahoney Air. It's going to be awesome. It's a Cessna 182.
That makes sense. So, yeah, so that was a big push for having the float plane, is that it's literally right downtown. And you can't offer that with Dawson's Airport being 20 minutes drive away.
Exactly.
So that, I've lost quite a few people.
You excited?
Yes. Nervous.
Sandra's flying up front. I'm not. Bummer.
Do you want to go up front?
Nope. There is the ferry over to the other side that takes you to the top of the World Highway in Dawson City. Up and away we go, passing Dawson on our left as we head down the Yukon River, or I should say up the Yukon River, then we'll bank right and come back down with Dawson on our right hand side. As Dawson comes by on the right hand side, you can see the main road in front right by the Yukon River, leading to that last bit of sand, which is where the ferry is. Now just under the wingtip, as it'll come into view very shortly, you will see the Midnight Dome. This is a great place to drive up to and have a great look around the city. We will show you that a little bit later. But look, oh my goodness, there's a paraglider. He's flying off down to where that windsock was that Sandra had mentioned when we were driving in to Dawson City. Next on our stop is 12 Mile Ditch, and that is that line that's cut into the ground. Leading from 12 Mile Creek, gallons of water were fed down to the dredges when they were panning for gold. As we traveled up, you can start to see Tombstone Mountain, along with the range just south going towards Dawson. Another shot of Tombstone Mountain with Monolith Mountain in the background. And now the beauty of Tombstone is in our sights as we look back down the Tombstone Mountain range, coming back through the valley and then back up to Tombstone Mountain and the Cauldron as we start flying further towards Monolith Mountain and into the only area that you can camp. There are 3 campsites designated within the national park. They are Talus Lake, Grizzly Lake, and Divide Lake. From the visitor center to Talus Lake, which is the last camp spot in this range, you are talking greater than 60 kilometers. Not for me anymore, I don't think. I think this is the best way to see the Tombstone Mountain Range. Even when we came in 2019, we actually couldn't see Tombstone Mountain, which you can see right here, because the fog and the cloud was low, and we also had tons of smoke from the forest fires in that year. As we look out the left-hand side of the aircraft now, we see Mount Frank Ray. Slightly different appeal on this side, less jagged and a lot more scree. Still, not that I want to climb up to the top of it. And now comes into view Mount Monolith. You can see that monolithic shape on top of the rock formation that stands for Mount Monolith. It's kind of weird because sometimes you might think that this is actually Tombstone because of the way that the rocks are formed, but Mount Monolith from the road is actually in front of Tombstone Mountain. As we look behind us now, we see one of those lakes. I believe that this one is Talus Lake, and at the very bottom in the middle or to the left in this shot, you can see those white dots. They are the camp spots that are available. Some of them have food tents in there, which means it's a covered eating area, just like a structure that you would see at a provincial or a territorial park. But these are made of canvas. They also have drop toilets on stilts, where they also have platforms to put your tent on. I believe that this is Divide Lake, but I could be wrong. And there's another example of that white cooking shelter that is at the end of the lake. Now, this is a part of our trip that we start to U-turn and start heading home, but Colin had another surprise for us. This whole area was dotted with small lakes and tarns, as I would say, and they get more spectacular as you go along. He was telling us that there was one in particular that he really likes, and he was having to show us because of how good it is. He calls this lake Blue Lake, and my goodness, the colors that come from these high altitude lakes is spectacular. So Blue Lake is coming up. This is not the one, and we thought that this one was absolutely fantastic. We couldn't get over how deep the blue color is inside of this. If only we had floats and we could dip down and get on there. But we do have floats, and Colin said that the problem with getting in and out of here is the actual airflow and the lack of, uplifting air for us to get us back out. So we carried on to find this blue lake that he says is impressive. We carried on our trip around the Tombstone Mountains. And as we climbed the next peak, into view comes Blue Lake. And my goodness, look at the richness of that blue. Absolutely unreal. With this lake, obviously, we couldn't land the float plane in here. The turnaround and takeoff time is just not long enough to get in and out of this one. But the backdrop from this lake looking down the whole range is a breathtaking, can't even get the words out, breathtaking and astonishing. And here we are flying at the top of the world, or what it feels like. Not for the faint-hearted, that is for sure. Not for me anymore. Taking this plane trip was absolutely phenomenal. Another quick look at Tombstone Mountain there, looking down the Tombstone Valley. And we're coming back on the way that we went in. So we headed up that valley towards Tombstone and Monolith and Talus and Divide Lake. One last look. Tombstone Mountain, you have been spectacular, and we are glad that we've been able to see from this height and this angle than what we saw in 19 from the road. As we head back into Dawson, we get an absolutely fantastic view of those tailings, and this is what made Dawson City so famous back in the 1800s with the gold rush. This little sort of triangle of water that you can see on the left hand side is their Dawson Beach. We tried to find it and had no joy. But look at the vast landscape that they have with all of these tailings. What I did notice is they have started to use some of those tailings to put down as roads, crush the rock, because there's not much left with this rock once the dredges have been through here. These flat areas where these buildings have been built, they've smoothed off some of those tailings, and because it's been sitting there and preloading the ground is solid. From the ground, and as you drive into Dawson City, these tailings are quite tall, and they do make it look ugly. My first impressions in 2019 is, why don't they get rid of them, do something with them? But now I've been here several times, you realize that they are actually a big part of the historic area of Dawson City and gold mining. As we move over to the left hand side, we're going to start to see one of the biggest mines that are still in operation in Dawson. Apparently they say that gold is still the biggest thing going on, and there is more gold coming out of the Dawson City area now than there was in the first gold rush. As we head down the Yukon River, we're coming into land. Colin, you've been taking us on this amazing trip. We just hope it's going to be smooth. I forgot to tell you that Sandra's never flown in floats before, so this is going to be an awesome experience if Colin can get this dialed in. Let's listen and see how it goes. Well, there you have it. I personally think that that's the smoothest landing that I've ever had on floats. I am looking forward to hearing what Sandra has to say. Colin, you did nail it. Fantastic. Absolutely awesome trip, and we would recommend this trip to absolutely anybody. So I just want to correct something here. I did say it was Nahoney Air. It's actually Peel Wilderness Adventures. I'm trying to get the aircraft in the background there. And Colin was amazing. That flight was wonderful. And again, because even though I was an air cadet instructor, I do get my planes mixed up because I was not a pilot. I said a 182, it's a 185 on floats. So, Sandra.
Yes, awesome. Fantastic. And I'm nervous about flying.
Doesn't matter how big the plane is. Unbelievable. I can't describe the whole experience, just everything, and his knowledge of what is around the surrounding area. It's just out of this world.
And if you forget who it is, just go over to, as we spin around here,
Guess what?
the visitor center right behind us.
And they highly recommend it.
And they recommended Colin and Peel Wilderness Adventures, and we gave him a phone call straight away, and we asked for today or tomorrow because we didn't know what we wanted to do. And
just over the road from the visitor center, there you go.
Literally, as you can see, we are opposite.
Just on the other side of the road, down the
Yep.
steps, and you're there.
Well worth it. Absolutely well worth it. So please check him out. They said he was a young pilot.
It's family operated, owned.
We've been around young pilots for all of my cadet career, and who better to fly with, and the knowledge, the experience,
everything.
the flight, the skill, amazing. Colin, thank you
very much, Colin.
Colin fitted us in that day. The reason why, he had a rescheduling happen. He phoned us back straight away after we'd left a message and said that he could accommodate us that night. And what an evening flight. Highly recommended. Now, just to leave you with a few sights of what we saw on that trip that made it so spectacular. Will we come back? We said to Jeff, maybe not, but I don't know. Looking at these videos, we may well be.